using a specialist to do that job's the right thing to do. So what I'm sort of saying is that you wouldn't go and get a painter to start, replacing your roof on your house.
It's interesting what you were saying about the pitch size. I love pitch bants, because Will was I wasn't in this pitch, but Will was in a pitch probably a year or so ago, and I think there was over 30 in the room, wasn't there?
That's the thing. You can literally roll that idea out in multiple kind of sectors, can't you? It's like, right, what can we build in Lego that's amazing?
Yeah. We should focus on that and promote that. It probably ties into one of the other things we're going to talk about, which is probably the Drunken Pitch.
Welcome back to Embracing Marketing Mistakes. Today, we're joined by Guy Utley from Tall Agency to chat all about the importance of specialists in marketing and choosing the right person for the right job. We also get into the chaotic nature of the pitch process, the need to be on your A game, and those difficult presentations and the results of pitching the morning after a particular heavy night of drinking, which certainly made me laugh. So, as always, grab a cuppa, relax, and let's hear more about how specialisms are key and how you can get more out of pitching properly. Enjoy. Guy Utley, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege.
So, you're and I've got your title here. You're the founder and executive creative director at Tall Agency.
Yeah, sounds posh.
It does. Now, a creative director, they're the ones that pontificate and think about things deeply, much more mindfully than a PR consultant, I would imagine. So why don't you just let me into how you got into what you do now? How did you start your career and get into the creative industry?
Okay. I'll do the short version, but we'll go way back. In school, I wasn't the most academic. I think we quickly worked out I was quite creative, but I wasn't going to be an A-star English student, a mathematical scientist or whatever. So my covers on the paperwork that I was putting in for my English documentation were getting higher grades than the actual work itself because they were entertaining and creative in terms of like its cover. I was like, so I definitely knew I was going to go down sort of that creative career. Then computers came along, web came along, even though I thought I was going to be designing sort of album covers and all the exciting stuff. And there's this website stuff that came along, and this digital and all this exciting new media. That was a long time ago. But I think that sort of mixture of what I now understand to be sort of a mixture of like critical thinking and creativity, I must have been good at, and I enjoyed very much as well. So I think applying that to the industry that I've fallen into has created my career really, and it's sort of gone from there. Yeah,
I mean, what you say there about being creative, to be a brilliant creative, it takes, I think, curiosity, but I can't draw. Like, I don't know how anyone can. People are artistically brilliant. I can tell what looks good and what doesn't look good because we work in brand, communication. I did graphic communication at uni, but I still can't do. Are you great? Are you great at doing the art? Or
I'm not a fine art.
Behind the art.
I'm not a fine art kind of guy. I think I got a low B in fine art. There were a lot of people better than me in that sense. I think it was more like taking abstract thinking and a creative angle to bring it into a different light and to show it in a different way. So I'll give you an example. Like I work with way smarter people than me in some of the brands that we work with. And do I name drop?
Yeah, you can do.
Do I do that? So we're working with people in Billund at Lego. These are super, super smart people that probably were A-star in their way. And I found out over the lifetime of working with people like this is why we're useful to them, people like me, is they've got this really, really quite technically complicated thing that they've got to explain to people, whether it be their audience, their customers, their C-suite level, to go get a budget signed off. I can translate that in a way through a story and creativity that they can't. So, and then that's the perfect partnership. So it's a very different skill set to have, but it's one that works. So whether you're trying to explain what an offset mortgage is, which is one of the dullest things you could probably be creative about, but you can bring that to life in a 60-second animation to cut to the chase in terms of like how it actually works in layman's terms, but do it in a creatively, really engaging way. That's gold dust to someone who's in finance and who's put that offset mortgage structure together. So I think creative is used in many, many different ways. And I think it is a true skill, I think, to have. And I'm really lucky enough to have a creative team around me that can execute that now.
So you touched on it by mentioning Lego, but why don't you talk to us about the kind of work and the kind of clients you have on the books at Tool Agency?
So we have a mixture of global through to small local Yorkshire businesses, spanning through from food sector, fast-moving goods to toy brands such as Lego. So we've got locally SharkNinja, which are Leeds-based, but also London-based and Boston-based, and we work with all the teams across those three areas. So SharkNinja, if you don't know them, they're the ninja fryers, the vacuums, the hair curlers, the hair straighteners.
I didn't even know they were in Leeds. So
Yeah. Just in the outskirts of Leeds, but the main the main businesses run from America, but they're obviously global. They're going everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating business, very fast-paced. Run by a CEO called Mark Baracus, who's dominating the world. Obviously, they're in we know like the Dysons of the world, so you put them in that kind of that level. And then Lego is probably one of the brands I would write down if I could work with 3 brands ever in my career. That'd be one of them. Fascinating business, family owned, multi-billion pound global company, full of very, very smart people. So they do keep you on your toes.
I was just reading about the latest Lego PR stunt at the Miami
F1.
GP? Yeah,
Fantastic.
amazing.
Really. I mean,
they basically created working F1 cars for the Miami Lego, didn't they?
Yeah.
In Lego?
Yeah.
In Lego.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, imagine being like that marketing team and going, what could we do? Imagine just building 10 F1 cars. All right, let's do it.
That's the thing. You can literally roll that idea out in multiple concepts. It's like, right, what can we build in Lego that's amazing?
Yeah.
I've still got a half-built Millennium Falcon that I could never finish, so I don't think an F1 car might be a bit beyond
my
that.
experience of Lego is basically walking into my son's room to wake him up in the morning and treading on a bit of Lego.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
Classic, absolutely.
So you've said in your notes, and you said this. You said this is a quote from yourself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use a painter to fix my roof. Do you want to give us an example of where you've seen brands or agencies doing this and what it means in a creative context?
So I think there's a couple of things here, right? So we stick to what we're good at.
Yeah.
So I don't profess to. I can't do paid. I don't know the first thing about paid media or setting up a huge event or. I know digital. I know my boundaries, and I think, and I'm not gonna go all like sour on things, but I think there's companies out there that try and do too much, and I think it's really, really tempting because the client's asking you to do more and more and more, and can you help us with this? It's really, really tempting to do that, but I really believe that having a specialism and using a specialist to do that job's the right thing to do. So what I'm sort of saying is that you wouldn't go and get a painter to start, replacing your roof on your house. Use a builder for that, right? And you use one you've been recommended. You wouldn't use a builder to go spray paint your car. The key thing is it's a simple rule, really. It's using the right people for the right job. And I think that goes for the types of agency you're using as a brand, or even like getting the right people in the business doing the right thing. We're a small business. There's only 15 of us in the core team. We're wider in terms of the partners and freelancers we have. But I think, and we have to have we end up doing each other's jobs sometimes because you do as a small company.
Yeah.
But I think it's also really important to understand whose skill sets are best placed on the project at the right time in the right place. And I think what I'm doing there in a really waffly way, sort of saying is, we're all really good at something and we should focus on that and promote that. It probably ties into one of the other things we're going to talk about, which is probably the Drunken Pitch, which I want to...
And we look forward to hearing about.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Come on to that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you mentioned, obviously it is tempting if you've got a great client and they keep asking you to do things, and an agency would naturally say, yeah, we can do that. But actually... a trend I've noticed in the last few years is most agencies, us included, and it sounds like you guys as well, tend to be grown up about working together now. I remember 10 or 15 years ago, there'd be lots of kind of butting heads, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
When several agencies are in the room. But now it's quite common to go to a meeting and you've got a content specialist, you've got a videography specialist, you might have a PPC specialist, and everyone works quite collaboratively. So that's progress, I suppose.
I would totally agree. I know we're sat in Leeds, so Leeds is probably on catch up on that front. I think Manchester's probably been there a little longer in terms of the collaboration, in terms of agencies and the community side of it, and then passing each other conversation, work and projects, and just working together generally. But yeah, Leeds does feel like that is certainly a way of working now, and it has been for a fair few years. We have to, because we're so niche and focused, which is great, but it also has its disadvantages. We work closely with performance agencies, for example. There's 2 or 3 that we work with in Leeds, Sheffield and Manchester. Because if they don't do their job right, there's no traffic coming through to a user experience or to see a brand. So they've got to do their job right. And then if we don't do our job right, all that hard work they've done isn't going to convert.
No.
So to be siloed in that way is not great for the client and for the brand. So I think, yeah, absolutely. It's there's enough work for us all to go and have a piece of and apply that specialism that we've got to it.
And I've got a question for you, because we're talking, we don't meet many people from the Leeds sort of agency market. So our listeners are all over the world. We've got some listeners in Peru.
Lovely.
Mozambique I saw the other day.
Right.
But what would you say is the pros and cons of being an agency based in Leeds in the UK in 2025? Because I think it's very different from when we started 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think let's start with the pros. I think the pros are the UK has a fantastic history in design. Some of the greatest things have been designed in the UK, and some of the most brilliant talent is here. And I think that is recognised worldwide, from to Asia to America. And I think the talent here. Look at it the other day we won't go down politics, but look at the film side of it. The fact that all the films that are being made in the UK versus say America is because of the great talent that we've got here. The UK is absolutely full of it. It's the same in the design industry. It's well recognised, it's well known, and it's got a really good history. So I think having an agency here in my field is a benefit. I do think we're well respected, and I think there's something about being English or British that still has a stand of approval.
Yeah, but does it matter where you are in the UK now, do you think?
Yeah, does this kind of this preconception that you have to be based in London if you're a big client, is that starting to go
I think
away?
it's starting to change. I bang the drum for the North all the time, too much sometimes, and I get in trouble a little bit. But look, if a London agency, for instance, wins an account up north, fair play, right? And then this is all about your own confidence and your own proposition. It's not about where you're located. There is that little bit, and I think it's old-fashioned now, but, as a marketeer or a brand owner, to be whisked off down London and taken out, it's a bit of a day trip, right? It's a bit of get to go down to London or up to London and get taken out. That's fantastic, and it's quite exciting. But I think, look at Manchester now, look at Leeds, look at Sheffield. These are fantastic cities, and it's very exciting to be up here. So I think after COVID, obviously, that took away some barriers in terms of like remote working. So, look, we work with people in all over the world, literally. So to have a barrier between here and London, which is a couple of hours on the train, is I think, madness. But the positive side of it, I think that is starting to be removed now.
Well, the fascinating thing that we've heard is that we spoke to somebody not long back, and they were compiling a list of US CMOs and using UK agencies to service American businesses. Because basically, for those of you that don't know, if you're in America, your salary is, because it's more expensive.
Yeah.
Your salary is minimum 80. I think it's 80K, or did you say 120K? You might have even said $1,000 for a normal marketer. Whereas you can, so as are the agencies, follow suit over there. So now apparently the US is looking at the UK. And is going, actually, like you've just said there, that the creative industries are brilliant. They respect the Brits. They probably think our accent, although maybe not from Leeds, is I can say that being from here, is is respected. They think that we are good at what we do. And we're on a slightly different time zone, but we get shit done basically. And they're going to get it for a better bang for their bang for their buck. Whereas there's always been this thing about London, as Will said, and it's now. I think the world is slightly changing. Like people aren't just looking at London for the day out, and to open a big office in London seems a bit ridiculous. That said, I don't see massive talent shift around. So talent moving away from London and being in loads of different places. And I was just interested to see if do you have everyone do they all go to your office? I
mean, like we've got the core team of around 15 and they do like to come to the office, or so they tell me. I mean, they're there. They're in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. People are starting to creep back in on a Monday and a Friday. We're not going to go back to how we were, but I think it will be flexible.
Yeah.
But the way that we work and operate is we're working with people all over the place. South of Wales, London, Scotland. Yeah. We've got freelancers and partners all over the country. So to us, this isn't new anyway. I think COVID just highlighted that it's possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need an awful event like that, as there's a lot of positives that's come out of it. But yeah, I think location isn't, as a blocker, is an old way of thinking. Time zones can be worked now. I agree with you in terms of the US using UK talent, and that is actually increasing.
Until the Trump tariffs came in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a different topic, isn't it? But that's a bit of chest pumping, puffing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I think barriers are going. The US do seem to hold the UK in good regard in terms of a number of things. So it's hopefully there's a good relationship there.
So let's for a moment talk about lazy content, because in the kind of the pre-briefing you were talking about lazy content. So as a bit of a starting point, what is lazy content in 2025? What do you mean by that?
So lazy content. Okay, so let me just start by saying I'm creative. I'm not technical. I'm not an SEO expert or into the performance world, right? And it doesn't, I'll be completely honest, it doesn't really interest me. I get quite bored quite quickly. It's probably like a ADHD type thing. It's really, really important that now. So basically, Google is still very much in charge for now. And what they say with their algorithms and how they decide who's going to be successful online is down to them. Up until July, August last year, there's a few things you could do to make sure your site's ranked or your brand's seen well online. It's changed now. Basically, Google is wanting you to give a very, very clear and well put together human experience online, which is great because all of a sudden that's back into my world. Whereas before, search was all about how much search copy you could put into a page and backlinks and all that dark magic, which was really boring and uninteresting.
Writing for robots, not writing for people.
Yeah, so Google does not like that now. So if you think I
don't think it ever did, to be honest.
No, but they could cheat.
It was a cheat code, wasn't it?
Yeah, the algorithm kind of thing. So I've got massive proof and case studies now that is winning us a lot of work. And there's a lot of companies wanting to work with us because of what we're doing, but we've always done it. But now we're being able to measure it and we've got a bit of a science around it. So if I give you an example, if you go into ChatGPT and you give yourself less headache by writing all your content, your web content for your web page, and then you put it on the website, Google's going to know that. Google's got its own AI that picks that up, and it'll go, not that useful, not that engaging. It's not really giving much guidance. And also, what else is going on this page? Are you getting is there some audio content on there that's giving some guidance around how to work, how to buy that product? Is there video content on there that's going to help me understand this product before I buy it as a user? Is there guides? Basically, there's some key things, and I'm not gonna give you all the key secrets because this is what we sell. But think authority, think trust, right, and think a really good human journey. You get all these things right in the right order, Google will absolutely love you for it. And we've got case studies where we've had, I use one for SharkNinja. They were nowhere for a certain key term to do with vacuums. Nowhere on Google. within 6 days they were on the first page. It blew their minds that. And it was all to do with creating the right content. So if you're lazy with it, yeah, you'll get there quick, and then you'll have your website up quick, or your blog or your page or whatnot. Google won't thank you for it though. So I think the time of lazy content, although we've got these really tempting tools in front of us like AI and whatnot to get things done quickly, image generation, video generation, copy generation, just be really, really careful with it. I'm not saying don't use it, but just make sure that you look at, are you ticking all the boxes?
It's the average of averages. That's why.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. It's looking at my thing about Google is even Google relevant anymore? Like you're pumping it into Google and you're talking about being on page one. Great. I mean, we do for a lot of what. So our background. So in terms of public relations is all about reputation, trust. It's all the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's always been good on Google if you've got a good PR reputation, you've been pushing that out. I'm not selling the services. That's just the way Google works. If you get coverage out there, that's why all these SEO agencies ended up in the late 2000s hiring. Suddenly, I was teaching at Leeds Beckett University. I was teaching on the PR degree, and half my students from my course were at SEO agencies, and I was warning them. I was saying, look, it's great that you're in there, but you're going to be stuck in like a cycle in a box of doing writing a story about data, getting a link, and then that's it. But it does get you links to PR, and that side of it can help build trust. So the eat side of it is great, and being on that page one of Google is fantastic. But does page one of Google actually matter in 2026? Because if I do a search now, it doesn't give me my results become below the AI result and below the and it gives you a snippet. It gives you the answer to the question, not your search, but the actual thing that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So that's a problem for Google for me. I think it's a problem because they're selling advertising, they're selling positions, but they're giving you the answer before you're going anywhere else.
Yeah.
So they don't even getting to the beautifully laid out execution of the page because they're getting the AI result, and that's Google's issue.
Yeah.
Are they becoming? And then there's other AI
self-create a problem.
Yeah, they've created their own problem.
Yeah.
I also think they got caught with their pants down with ChatGPT and the others.
Well, the US have just launched shopping within ChatGPT, so you can literally go like, "What's the best vacuum cleaner?"
Yeah,
and it'll bring the shop and the content and the recommendations straight into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's not released in the UK yet, but it'll be a matter of weeks before it does. So we're already adjusting all our projects to make sure that ChatGPT indexes the content that we're writing.
If you do a spelling mistake in a social media post, it gets something like 15 times more engagement because everybody's like, "Oh, mistake," and you see some brands doing it with a really obvious spelling mistake. So if you ever do a spelling mistake in a post and the client flags it, it's deliberate because it gets 15 times more engagement. That's
why we've been doing it for years. There's been mistakes. This show's about mistakes. That's what's great.
So anyway, come on, tell us about.
But no, it's not. The thing is, it's not that shadowy. I think the days of like this dark magic of SEOs. It's going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
ChatGPT. They're very clear and open in terms of what's needed. That's I think that's the beautiful thing. I think the way that they work is very different now. They want this to be used in the right way. They're very clear in terms of their system is not recommending the content. Their system is pulling what's being reviewed on the web, right? And this is where the trust and authority.
Google.
Yes.
So that's the confusing side.
And in other places though, there isn't just Google. I know that we all just go to Google.
Other search engines.
Other search engines are available. Yes.
News articles, UGC, customer reviews,
customer reviews, everything. The stuff that you guys do. Yeah.
Which comes down to reputation.
Again, reputation, PR. The two have got a symbiotic relationship because you've still got to get good reviews.
Yeah.
If you've got a shit product, it's not going to work, is it?
That's it.
So searches what's the shittest product in this sector.
And in that case, you'll get loads of links.
So to answer you, I didn't get a chance to answer you. So what you were saying was, I understand where you're coming from. And it's not just about ranking on the first page of Google, but you still need to have that. If you have that lazy content and you're not backing up with reviews and authority and getting people to write blogs and comment on it and tell you why this is a fantastic product, you're not gonna be found. And you're not going to be found in all these different ways of being found. So if you've got the best product in the world and you're not taking time to sell it properly, if you were going to spend £80,000 on a new car. You're not just going to go, oh, that's a nice one. Oh, there's £80,000, have it. You're going to go talk to the salesperson. You're going to go down to the garage. You're going to go see it, open it, smell it, turn it on, whatever you do when you're buying a car. But you're going to see all the features and find out about it because it's a big investment. People are doing that with an £800 coffee machine, right? They want to understand all the benefits and how it's going to change their life. You can't just stick a picture of it up at 5 different angles and go, yeah, it makes six coffees, buy it. It's just that world's gone now. People love to self-educate and they've got time to do it. And they're doing it on the mobiles. We call it kind of the messy middle. So if there's 3 coffee machines, which one do you buy? It's the messy middle. It's got to be sold to you, right? You've got to find out why it's going to change your life. Yes, there's a price point. But if it's £100 difference and one is going to change your world, you're going to go for the more expensive one.
So, okay, how do we distill that then? So, and this sort of links with how do we not do lazy content? Is it about customer understanding? Is it about really getting under the skin of the questions, the problems, the challenges the consumer has?
You've got to understand your customer and you've got to understand what they want. So the reason that SharkNinja are moving faster than probably Dyson and some of the other competitors is they're really, really spending a lot of time and money and effort understanding their client base. So let me give you one example on a vac, right? A vac's a vac. Everyone has a moan. Some people love Dyson. I think, they're heavy, they look nice, they break after whatever. SharkNinja didn't go in on that angle. They went in on how are the people actually using them? And they researched and questionnaire them. And they were sort of saying, so what do you do when you vac? Tell me what you do. Well, I vac my house. I've got 2 daughters and a cat and a dog. And they watched them. And what they did is every couple of weeks, they saw the user turn the vac upside down, pick all the hair out of the little spinny thingy, take it apart, pull all the hair out, chop with the scissors, cut it all out, clean it, put it back in. And they said to the customer, he's like, what were you just doing then? Can you explain? Oh, well, I was just taking the cat hair and is that a problem? Well, no, that's what you do. That's how I've always done that. That's just the thing. That's where it goes. SharkNinja go, it doesn't have to be like that though. So what they did is they built one where they've got the tool where it cuts it as it's being turned. So there is no hair in it. So now it isn't a problem. So they're finding problems that we didn't even think were problems. Yeah. So it's really, really about understanding your customer.
That's a recurring theme, time and time again on the pod, isn't it? It's all about customer understanding.
Absolutely.
Skipping that, you will pay for it. Right?
It's been that way for marketing for years, though.
Forever.
If you don't understand your bloody audience,
why is Dyson not doing it?
Because
they will be doing it.
They will be doing it. I think it's just there's a number of things that I think Dyson are a fantastic company, by the way, and I think they've innovated more than most 90% of the businesses. But I think it's just down to really, really understanding. And then once you found that out, and this is the one thing the Americans are really good at, is really exaggerating the features to be on you can't live without this now. Can you imagine picking some scissors up and going and cutting through some dog and oh my God, this is disgusting. So I think it's about finding that out and then marketing it. And I think the companies that are doing the marketing well, then doing all the things we just talked about, are going to be the winners. The brands that are trying to cut corners and do lazy content are going to lose out.
So this is my favourite bit. So you had a pitch situation where you might have been slightly intoxicated. Is that correct?
Absolutely intoxicated. So when he said, tell me about some mistakes you made in business, I've got lots. I was 17 years in tall, and I had a business before that for 5-6 years. So there's lots of mistakes made. But I think you learn off your mistakes and you pick yourself up and hopefully there's positives that come out of that. But we'll talk about this one. So I think there's a couple of things I've learned from this, and if I'm spreading any advice, is don't drink on a school night, even if it's an award. So we were out celebrating an award. This was a fair few years ago. This is going back 10 years ago. It was Best Creative Agency Award.
Oh, right. It's a big one, though.
It was a big one.
Worthy of celebrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And we won it. And then, you've been drinking a couple of beers and you've had a white wine with your dinner and then someone brings some red wine. And you wouldn't drink like this normally. You'd have in different drinks. And then you'd have, I'll have a whiskey because we're celebrating. The next thing, you're very, very drunk and you can't remember the taxi home. This was me on a normal Thursday night, completely forgetting at 9 a.m. the next morning I had a pitch. So it's not like I can call up another creative director in my business and owner because
it was already written, right?
It was already done. It was booked in and ready to go. Yeah,
right.
Already written. Yeah, it was.
So you at least you had it written. You weren't having to work.
That was the great bit. Whether that helped me at all in the morning was a completely different scenario. Now, thankfully, it was a local pitch. I won't say whether I drove or not, but let's just say probably on autopilot getting there. And I can't remember the pitch at all. I remember going in the room, but I can't remember actually pitching the pitch.
Barging into the room.
Yeah, just
door slamming back.
And I dread to think now because the client were there. It was a well-known bread company, and I just think, oh God, what must I smell like pure yeast, like in the room.
That's a bit like Severance, isn't it? If you've got no memory of what
Yeah.
happens in the room.
Yeah. So awful. So then, come Monday, you're thinking, oh my God, I better contact the agency we were dual pitching with because we were using their officers. It was, this is Guy from Tall. He's the digital expert and he's going to, you can imagine.
Were you on your own from Tall?
I was on
so
my own.
you were in another agency's domain and then you were wheeled out as the...
Standing up for Tall's brand and representing Tall half cut. Okay. Now, the good news talking to the other agency owner is he didn't have a clue. He did, you really? No, I didn't get that at all. I was like, wow. We found out a week later we won. We won the pitch. So we were against the other agency. We won the pitch.
But you've got no idea what you promised.
I have no idea what I promised, which gets to the learning bit in a second. But so I think that the lesson learned there is, I think for me, and I don't drink on a school night. And if it's awards, take it easy and try not to book anything out the next 24 hours afterwards.
I think you've been harsh on yourself there, mate. It's because we if we're going out, we wouldn't get absolutely thunderbolted on a Thursday night. But if we've won an award for best, we've won best PR agency a few times.
Yeah.
If that happens, I remember going Sambuca's on.
Yeah.
Literally, it's the one time where you've got to celebrate.
Yeah.
And the fact that you forgot, what I would say there is the lesson there is plan your diary better. If you need to plan your diary better, you need to speak to Will Ockenden because he's brilliant at planning his diary.
Maybe that model works perfectly. Have you tried it again?
I'm just going to say, well, I
tried to recreate.
I think the lesson learned from it was because I think prior to that, because I didn't read the notes, didn't read the pitch. I think I just pitched.
No,
that was the thing. Yeah.
Bowled it straight in.
Yeah. So I think the lesson I learned from it was I used to really, really over prepare. For pitching. I used to have the cues and the notes and I used to get myself so wound up thinking I've got to deliver everything in a certain way and I just don't do that anymore. I don't prepare in the same. Obviously I need to understand what it is I'm pitching and I do my research, but I don't prepare the actual the pitch order because what I've found is actually you're not as natural. You're not being able to pull from your experience and your knowledge in the right way because you've already formatted it. So if there's a question or you have to pivot within the pitch scenario, you can't because you're already rigid and you throw yourself off. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think what I found out after that was, well, if I can win it drunk, then surely I can win it sober. But what have I learned from it? It's like chill out a little bit. Just have a little bit more relaxed sort of way of presenting your knowledge and skills and experience. And that's the thing I've sort of taken on board. When I go into meetings now and I'm talking about my business, it's very rare the laptop even gets opened because it's more about understanding what that brand wants. Yeah. What's your problem? What do you want me to do? How can I help you?
Rather than death by PowerPoint.
They don't want to hear 10 minutes about how great Tall is. The last 17 who gives a shit. It's more about, they want to know, you've already been recommended. You've got, they've seen who you're working with. It's about them.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It absolutely is. But the weird thing about all you marketers out there listening to this is everybody is bloody different. And you're right. Nobody gives a shit how long you've been going or we've been going and how many people we've got and that we have Wellness Wednesdays and all these things. They don't care. But then you meet that client that actually does. Can I see who's pitching? Yeah. Can I see who's going to be working on this, please?
Yeah, What's your experience? You didn't tell me which awards you've won.
Yeah.
But, that rarely. It's you're right. When you're in the room, they've done their due diligence 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
That's the first 10 slides of the deck. You don't
Yeah,
need to talk, you're just boring them, aren't you?
Yeah.
We've won this many awards.
Yeah.
These are the clients. Of course, they know what clients you work with. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invited you in.
Yeah.
And often the first 10 minutes can be like, this is what your brief said. And it's like, yeah, they
You're
know
already
what
lost
the
it.
brief
We
said.
wrote the brief. We know
and
that.
usually the brief's wrong, by the way. The people that write the brief usually get the brief slightly wrong.
Yeah.
And then there's the brief inside the brief that it's our job as a...
We've had an argument. We've had the client actually arguing in a pitch over the brief because it wasn't what they thought the brief was.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's the worst. When you've got somebody like a really senior marketer, and then you've got the junior marketer who's written it. You're the pitch. The junior marketer's written the pitch brief. You've pitched to the pitch brief, and the senior marketer hasn't. Have you been in that situation?
Yeah, a lot of times.
And they're going, "This isn't why." And you're going, "This is what's in the brief."
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, "I can't say that because they're sat there and they've written
don't
it."
throw
And
them
we
under the
asked them
bus.
the question. We asked them that question, and they're sat there looking all shady.
I think there's another thing as well, and if we've got time, just touch on like imposter syndrome a little bit. So I don't know if you've ever had imposter syndrome. It's a weird and wonderful and odd thing.
Every day.
Yes, I do all the time. And I was like, what I came to realize that's okay too. So I'd be in these meetings and these pitch scenarios, and I'm thinking, oh God, what are they expecting from me? Am I going to deliver? Am I the right person for it? As you do as you in your career, and that never goes away because you might feel comfortable in that small room of 2 or 3, but then as your clients grow and the brands grow, and you sat in front of Lego and SharkNinjas of the world, and the boardroom's a bit bigger, and there's a bit more people in there, and they've got more fancy titles. The same people, as I now know, that they do the same thing. But the imposter syndrome on my side was still there. And then I heard or got told a story, and I really do forget who it is, so apologies and credit to whoever told me it. But they give me an example, and it was like, who's the most important person in the room at that point? And the example was, there's a surgeon, there's a joiner, and there's a golf tutor, right? Okay. Who would you say is the most respected in that room?
A surgeon, a joiner, and a golf tutor.
Yeah.
Well, you choose the surgeon.
Yeah. So the most respected person in that room is the surgeon.
Yeah.
I think 99.9% of the public would probably say that. And that is true if it's just in a general environment, right? In a coffee shop or in a bus stand, whatever. What happens, though, if the surgeon and the joiner is on the golf course and they don't know anything about golf? Who is then the most respected person in the room? The golf tutor, right? Yeah. So it's about context. It's about where you are. And on that day, you're there for a reason. They've brought you in as the expertise. So they're looking at you with that respect, or they should be doing, otherwise they're not the right brand to be working with. But they're looking at you with respect of, like, you're going to tell them what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. So the imposter syndrome doesn't need to be there. You just need to have confidence in yourself. And I think that's always stuck with me. Depending on where you are and what is the task to be done on the day, is you're probably the right person to be talking to them at that point.
I actually see imposter syndrome as a positive, in as far as it means you're pushing yourself and putting yourself in situations you're not comfortable with. Yeah. And that's progress, isn't it?
Absolutely,
if you're not having imposter syndrome, maybe you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So that's another way to frame it.
It's interesting what you were saying about the pitch size. I love pitch bants, because Will was I wasn't in this pitch, but Will was in a pitch probably a year or so ago, and I think there was over 30 in the room, wasn't there? A particular, can we cut a brand name?
Oh God,
do you remember?
Yeah. It was the client's international marketing conference, and they thought it would be a good idea to get all 30 of the international team in the same room. So the original 2 clients we pitched with and built a relationship with, suddenly there's 28 more of them, and they're all asking questions, and most of them hadn't even read the brief, and it was a fucking nightmare.
I bet.
Building rapport.
Yeah.
You're going to build rapport with 30 people.
Yeah, because you'll get one person go, oh, you've not told anything about yourself to us, so can you go back? And you're like...
We ended up getting in a bit of an argument with this Dutch guy who hadn't read the brief and didn't agree with what we were proposing in a market that wasn't even his.
Yeah.
We didn't win the pitch.
I mean, look, he's probably, this is probably a different podcast, but the pitch thing is broken anyway. There's warm pitches and there's cold pitches.
Yeah.
And We tried to like implement like a no pitch policy at all a few years back, and it's very difficult because people are set in their ways, and you have to pitch for stuff. But we've kind of got to a place where we call it a warm pitch. If we've not had a bit of a chemistry call or meeting, and it's not bulletproof because you sounded like you'd already done that on this example, but we've got to have a bit of a chemistry meeting. We've got to see if the businesses are, have we even got that connection, on the front line before we get into the nitty gritty of like the project detail, because we've spent far too many hours and far too many pounds getting to a certain point, and then they'll say, "Oh, it turns out you haven't got an in-house copywriter. Sorry, where was that in the brief?"
Yeah.
So it's flawed in so many ways, but I think again, the marketeers are getting smarter now. Brands are getting smarter, and they understand that. And a lot of the marketeers now have come from agency side, so they've seen the other side of that, and they get that. So I think
it's refreshing when they do get it. I mean, last year for the first time ever, we got paid to pitch.
Nice.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
Nice.
and it was somebody that was from a consultancy agency background. They got it.
Yeah.
It was discussed right at the and that's just respectful of time.
Yeah, 'cause
brilliant.
if you're picking three, so we do that. We qualify all of our leads, and then we'll have a call to qualify. Yeah. We've got several qualification stages, and then you get through to it. But to get through to the final, I mean, so we were going to pitch to a big travel brand, and it was warm. They'd been to a couple of events of ours, and they invited. It was Will and I. Right, it was a long time ago. It was only about 6 of us at the time, and we got invited to this travel brand, and they said, "There's." On the question, the qualification meeting was, "How many agencies are going to be pitching?" And it was either 12 or 14. And we
and that was
just said
the final stage as well.
That was to the final stage. We were like, no.
How could you even? How could you even remember pitch 1 when you're on pitch 14?
Yeah, and how different are they really going to be? 14 of them. They're going to be. Look, this is another thing. Like, we all sell the same thing. We all use the same tools. We're all necessary. There's 100 agencies in Leeds that do what we do. Okay, from small to large, and we're all doing the same thing. Okay, so it only comes down to a few things. Are we alike as a brand and an agency? Are we going to get on a people level,
partnership level?
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
Because there's very different types of people, right? And some of them might think I'm a dick, and some of them might love me. It depends on who I'm talking to. Then there's a skill level. Of course, you're going to have a certain level of skill in the business. The tools we're all using are the same. We're all using AI and Figma and chat and this, and it's all the same stuff, right? And we might be using it in a little bit of a different way, but it's all of a muchness, right? It's got to be about, are you right for that project and that client? Have you got experience in it? Have you got great ideas in terms of where it can go? But like 14 different agencies, what are they? How different can that be, really?
So my next question is, because I went down to something called PR 360, which is a conference for PR Week, a couple of years ago, and they had a session on pitching, and I came back with this, and it was basically these two top guys who pitched in London for 2 of the top 10 PR agencies, different ones, competing against each other regularly, by the way. And if one of them was against the other one, they both admitted to shitting themselves because they knew they were both good, which I thought was quite refreshing. And one of their tips was, if there's no budget, there's no pitch.
Yes, we had the same.
Because if they won't commit to any form of budget, don't pitch.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a game changer, because really you get so many people who just want to kick the tires, take a look around. Oh yeah, I think it's a problem. What can you do? Can you half your budget? Can you do that?
And I think it's a bit disrespectful, I think. And I think the paid pitch is a great scenario because the due diligence has already been done, the hard work and the graft's been done on both sides. So you've got it down to, say, 3 companies and you're willing to pay for those 3. That feels right to me because it's not, and it doesn't need to be a lot of money. It just needs to be skin in the game from both sides. Yeah. And I think you will get a better result from the agency. They'll work harder. They'll go they'll go look at it a bit deeper and a little bit harder, and they'll want it more. And I think that, light briefs, lazy briefs, no budget, and just firing it out to like 10 agencies, that's got to change. And I think agencies will start pushing back. We do say no, and we're in a privileged position.
People don't like it.
No, they don't like it. In fact, we won 2 clients when we said no. There's one in Leeds, I'm not going to name them. if she's listening to this, she'll know who it is. But and we've been working with them for many years, and we've got a great relationship with them now. They asked us to pitch, and it came through similar. It was a good brief. Budget was defined, but there were a couple of things in there that we were a bit like, it felt a bit cold. And we had a different way back then. We still use it now, but we had something called gravity, which basically was you define the brief first, right? And then you work out the budget. So you define the brief with all the people that were around the table who didn't know what they were in the pitch room for and what we're here for. We used to do that first, but we should charge an amount for that. So basically we used to get the C-suite in or the high-level stakeholders. Paid pitch, right? Do it together, work out the brief, and then we'd respond to that. We said no to this company when they sent through the RFP, and she rang us and like sort of kind of how dare you sort of thing. Like, what do you mean no?
Yeah, we've had a few of these.
you know. So we were like, well, can we come and talk to you about it? It's only down the road. Can we come and talk to you about it? So me and Bruce, my business partner, were sat there and we were sort of defending why we weren't going for the pitch, but we told them about there's this other way, we can do this. It's not all the investment. It's a little bit of investment, skin in the game. And we'll spend some time. We'll spend 3 or 4 hours with your team. We'll do a load of work beforehand, and we will craft the right brief that we can then respond to, and it will give you the right budget that you need. It actually turned out the budget was nearly 4 times what they needed in the end, and they agreed to it. 4 times what they put out in terms of the budget, right? But they agreed to it because they've been on the journey with us, and they'd seen and realised, and they were like, God, did we tell you it needed to be in another 2 languages? No, you didn't say that bit. So by the time we got through that process, where what happens with pitching is all the people go for that budget they've been given, so they all respond to it and go, yeah. And then actually they get into the nitty-gritty of the project, and it's not really a 50 grand project, it's a 100 grand project. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of downfalls to the pitch scenario. It's quite comical sometimes, though, as being an agency owner, being on some of the seeing the different ways that the brands put out the pitch and what they expect from that as well. And thankfully, I suppose you don't get it too much in the PR world, but the 3 concept thing's gone. It used to be, can you just give us 3 concepts? 3 concepts, brand concepts, web concepts. Can we have 3 concepts in the proposal, please? Like,
that's the work, isn't it?
That's the work. But I'm like, how can we do the work? We don't really truly understand what you need yet, because the brief's
it's such
1
a fine
page
line,
long,
isn't it? Where prospective, a pitch crosses over into the work.
The work,
When someone asks for a strategy, the strategy is the work.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's about it's. I've never quite resolved that.
No, I don't know how you're finding that, but I do see that becoming less and less now. They sort of say it's not a creative pitch, so we don't expect designs, but they still expect a lot of strategy. They want to know that you've got that strategic level of thinking that's going to reassure them and the key stakeholders that they're going to get a return on investment. And actually, I think that we are doing more of that. If not, we're actually leaning into that. We're able to. We've got some fantastic tools. Some of them are our own actual tools that helps demonstrate return on investment now. That's a massive game changer in the brand world, because it used to be like, no, honestly, if you do PR or you do brands, you're gonna get something back. Like, how much then? Well, you'll get more. Can you guarantee that? Well, no. But trust me, because we've done it for these other brands, and it doesn't fulfill.
It probably works.
Well, the CFO doesn't like that. No. So this is another thing. Like, I think I might have, wanted to talk about is the friendship between the CMO and the CFO. So the chief marketing officer and the financial controller, who was ultimately holding the purse strings. They're very, very different people.
Oh yeah.
And no matter how much culture you put in front of them, how much skill set and portfolio and case studies and depth and breadth of where you've come from, CFO's going, how much? And does that fit into the budgets?
Hard numbers.
Yeah.
Often the founder can be like that as well. If you work with founder businesses, it's end
and rightly so. I totally get it. Especially, I know there's you've got global listeners, but in Yorkshire, there's some people quite tight. So
that's just played completely to a stereotype there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's kind of it's a real balancing act. I think we've got a quite a difficult job to do in normally 60 minutes. whether you're drunk or sober. But you've got 60 minutes to please a lot of people. I think their hands are tied on marketeers sometimes when they've got a set budget already, because the world is changing so dramatically, so fast, that a budget that was set even 9 months ago is wrong, because it means the marketeers can't take advantages of the changes that are happening.
Yeah.
So the lazy content, or the what's Google want now, what's ChatGPT doing, or the agency or the PR agency have got a different idea because they can take advantage of this in TikTok or this on a website or this. But the problem is the marketeers got their budget fixed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, where do you go from there?
So fluid budgets. We need a minimum budget.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some bandwidth in that.
There just needs flexibility, and I think there needs to be a combined communication and not siloed one. I'm probably going too deep into that side of it, but just I think there just needs to be a recognition that marketing's changing. It needs to be flexible.
Well, there'll be lots of listeners planning pitches, so some really good insight. I think
The briefs or the responses.
Yeah.
So you've been on the show now. If you were us, who would you next have on the show in that spot to ask them about their mistake that they could share on here?
Oh, so there's the people that come to mind, and these guys I've worked with for like many years. There's Rob Savin and Nick Gander from Super Infinite. Okay, so these are two guys that I've worked with for many years. They've been in some fantastic businesses, mainly in the sort of finance world, but more recently in retail as well. From Yorkshire Building Society to the Co-op to Altkit, and they've been going about a year. I don't want to use the word consultants because they're not. They're sort of business strategists. They've got so many stories. They're fantastic to listen to. I'd highly recommend. They're brilliant. They've got so many stories. You probably need Rob Savin and Nick Gander.
Rob Savin. Oh, yeah. Give us an intro.
Yeah, absolutely. They're fantastic to listen to.
So, if people want to get hold of you, how can they find you, Guy?
Tall.agency, nice and short, brand short. We're called Tall. Small team in Leeds, working globally. Just give us a shout. Whether it's you want a new brand, you want to digitize your brand, you're looking for a better digital experience. We're doing like high performance work at the minute. So if you're wanting to, there's a lot of CMOs out there and heads of brand who are getting asked, a lot of them, in terms of increasing revenue, selling more, and being demanded of more online. We can help them. So yeah, give us a shout, Tall.agency.
That sounds like a recently sharpened proposition.
It is a recently sharpened proposition.
Yeah, that was relevant.
I know I'd get me in a lot of trouble if I didn't know it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Brilliant.